Hello, this is Gene Mitchell. We're back with another episode of the Libertarian Uncensored podcast, and we'll start with we've tried Nothing Roll Out Options by Mudhugging Inc., and that was it's a meme. It's you got Jerry Tom the cat on his computer, and he's looking away in disgust, and it says on the computer it says policies that actually reduce crime, and then Tom has a text of tough on crime politicians over him. So my thoughts on that is everyone thinks they know how to reduce crime. You've seen theories like broken windows and all that. But I do think crime is something that's always going to be kind of inevitable. I do think tough on crime policies have shown that they don't work. So I agree with that. But I definitely think that we don't really know the test of what really does work when it comes to crime, I would say, because sometimes crime is just inevitable because I think humans are just kind of innately violent creatures, and if their circumstances get desperate enough, they'll will turn to crime. So that's important to remember. It's important. So we'll see how that, yeah. Then we have Nazi flag U-Haul crashes into White House complex from breaking points, and that was probably a false flag. Their name was Sai Varshiv Kendula. Apparently, that was the suspect's name. That sounds like a very white supremacist name, and I like how then they just put the Nazi flag neatly on the ground for all to see. It's, of course, it's just you're getting lazy with these false flags, I think, and it's just they can just do anything like this, and people will probably believe it if it's their narrative. We live in a time period where narratives are a lot more important than context, and you definitely see that with all these false flag incidents. Then we have a tweet from Michael Malice. The strategy is to form a corporate consensus so that boycotting everyone will become virtually impossible, while simultaneously disturbing risk. COVID provides a superb example of corporate collusion that progressives historically railed against as fixing the market. And that's a tweet from Michael Malice, as I said. And the thing is, those who control the resources control. I agree with that. Those who control the resources control the culture, and right now the control of them is held by the collusion between the mega corporations and the governments. So it's everyone hates centralization. Everyone the progressives always say, "Oh, well, we hate the billionaires," but all the billion-dollar corporations, they always vouch for progressive causes like identity politics, which makes you think. So the thing is that these things are designed to push the culture war, and that's pretty much it. They know that as long as they push identity politics, they'll be safe. So that's why they keep pushing it. An autopsy cites neglect for man's death in a bedbug-infested Georgia jail cell from NPR.org, and that's from Harumph. And I definitely think you do have a good argument for neglect there. Jail shouldn't be too comfortable, I would say, because it is punishment after all. But I do think it's important to remember that we shouldn't be neglecting people so that they die in bedbug infested jail cells. So that's my thoughts there. Then we have the rise of right-wing progressivism. The post-liberal conservatives who disparage right liberalism are unapologetic proponents of actual left-wing policies, from Reason.com, another one by Harumph. And my thoughts on that one are, I definitely think you are increasingly seeing the right turn to almost this right socialism kind of stuff. People like Tucker Carlson and kind of Donald Trump, I would say. I'd argue economically we're getting near you're getting near socialism with them, especially they're definitely and that's definitely how I think as long as they continue emphasizing economic issues over culture issues, I would say that's probably their best bet going forward as a party. Telecoms detail their dumb plan to force tech giants to pay them billions for no reason, from Techdirt.com and everyone by Harumph. And yeah, it's the thing is, everyone wants money for free, but nothing in this life is for free, as the Cage the Elephant song goes. Wait, no rest for the wicked. But the thing is, people can force people to pay money whenever they want if they have the narrative on their side, I would say, and this might be an example of that. Salman Rushdie renews fight against book banning. Free essential articles on right-wing challenges to what school kids can read. Bought from theconversation.com and everyone by Harumph. And my thoughts on that are, I do think we should be against book banning, but what's happening right now is they're just kind of censoring materials that might be considered sexual in some instances, like this book is gay, or what's the other one, genderqueer, and I think that's important as well. You should always have the public libraries where you can see whatever you want, but you do have argument to keep things out of the curriculum if they can get to, if the parents don't feel comfortable with them, especially since the schools are taxpayer funded. Meanwhile, in Texas, arrested for child sex crimes, dismissed, arrested again for child sex trafficking. That's a Chi-Town Post and Chi-Town 20, and yeah, a lot of bad people on all sides of the political spectrum, as I always like to say. Illinois AG probe: Catholic clergy sexual abuse of her kids was far more common than church acknowledged. 451 clergy abused 2,000 kids, not trans people. So my thoughts on that are, I definitely do think the church does have a problem with all the abuse in it, but I do think you got to see all the issues all around. Everyone hates pedophiles until the narrative says, oh, we have to support pedophiles, when they say the right things. So it's important to remember that that, as don't justify shit when it's your side doing it. Rick Scott issues travel advisory for socialists, warning Florida is openly hostile to them. From thehill.com, that's another virtual signal travel advisory. We just had the NAACP one for them, and then all the gun advisories for the U.S. from the Western liberal democracies like UK, Canada, Australia, all those Western circle jerk countries. So I think these are just kind of circle jerk. The U.S. is in Afghanistan, but it's just kind of a circle jerk, I would say. So yeah, this is just kind of tiring. And Rick Scott definitely has to be one of the bigger blowhards in the GOP. I argue almost on the level of Trump. I never really liked the guy. And family of man killed by police while mental health crisis gets $19 million from NBCDFW.com by Harumph, and that is a yeah. I definitely think you should. I guess that's a fair compromise. I don't think the police should be killing people, but you do have to realize if depends what was happening. Was he a threat? Was he seen as a threat? That's the question as well. So we have to remember that. And even if he was seen as a threat, was he going to hurt anyone? That's another thing to remember. Report: school choice in Indiana leads to $88 million savings in spending on primary secondary education in 2019-20 from bsu.edu. And that is from My Circle Jerk, and I think that's good. I always like to support school choice, and yeah. Then we have Ron DeSantis will launch his presidential bid with Elon Musk from NBC News by Harumph, and that's another one where that's going to happen later today, I think, and we'll see how that plays out. And yeah, so then we have so we'll see how Ron DeSantis' campaign goes. I don't know if he can beat Trump, but we'll see how he can do it. I know, yeah. Restaurant files a lawsuit against Florida Governor DeSantis over drag show laws from NBCDFW.com by Harumph. And my thoughts on that are, I guess they should be able to file a lawsuit, but I guess I would support their freedom of expression. I guess to do the drag shows. I personally don't think I like the over sexualized drag shows for kids, but I guess you could argue that that's not a NAP violation. But you could argue it's a NAP violation as well to take kids to the sexualized drag shows. So that's my thoughts there. Ogden residents are required to receive clinical abortion training. They can't do that in Texas. Abortion restrictions running in conflict with training requirements are pushing lifelong Texans to leave the state. Texans to leave maybe for good. That's an archive link of a article from Texas Monthly by Harumph. And I definitely think we should try and I personally I'm more on the pro-choice side, but I definitely think we should at least try more middle ground abortion. Maybe like just first trimester, early second trimester only. So we'll see how that goes, and hopefully eventually we can come to a compromise on abortion. Yeah. Anarcho Doggo, The Anarchist Dog by Hold Off Hunger is the next post, and it's the link to a image post of a dog with the ANCOM flag behind him, and he's holding a rifle. So I guess that's kind of cool. It's a little communist for me, but this is nice. Update on Tacoma TB lady from ArsTechnica.com, and everyone by her umph. And yeah, that's interesting. That woman traveling about, a woman with untreated TB still on the land 3 months after arrest warrant. I do think you should have a right to free travel. I do think tuberculosis can be deadly, but I'm personally 50-50 on this issue. If you want to, if you feel like it's not justified to be held under solitary confinement, you should be able to be on the run. But I do think you do have the public health argument as well, like for people like Typhoid Mary. So we could see that you can see that as well. So I think if as long as the woman wants to run, I think she should be able to. But because I always think you should be able to resist the law whenever you feel like it, as long as you're not hurting anyone else. Though you could make the argument she is hurting some other people. But the thing is that it's unintentional. I think you have to be intentional to violate the NAP, and so yeah, I could go either way with this. Yeah. Then we have nearly 2,000 children were sexually abused by Catholic clergy in Illinois, the state's attorney general says, from English lpace.com. It's Idonki. Of course, that's another one of the Illinois circle jerks. Yeah, we've already kind of talked about that. We have another one after that. Sex abuse in Catholic Church. Over 1,900 million minors abused in Illinois, state says from nytimes.com. So that's another one. Of course, the church probably does need to get some help there. Yeah. The panic from the then we had the panic from the corporate press as they increasingly become excluded from the national conversation is hilarious to behold. TLDR, get fucked. You are the enemy of the people. From Michael Malice, and I posted that, and that was in response to the Atlantic tweeting. Elon Musk has since transformed Twitter into a right-wing alt-tech platform that has much in common with likes of True Social and Rumble at See Wurzel writes. And the thing is, any dissent at all, they'll say, oh, you're alt-right, you're right-wing, you're alt-tech, So that's the thing these days. You can't dissent at all, or they'll come after you for it. So that's why you do have to hold your ground sometimes and say, I'm dissenting. If you want it, you can label me whatever you want, but I personally don't consider myself that. So that's why I think on that issue. Then we have the origin of minimum wage in the progressive eugenics movement from Ruin My Circle Jerk, and that's from ei.org. And I definitely would agree there that we shouldn't be forcing minimum wage down people who don't want it. And yeah, because I definitely think you do have the thing that the minimum wage is going to cause more inflation, and it's important to remember. And we have landmark Supreme Court cases from U.S. v. Lopez, 1995, from Hip Hughes, and that's on YouTube. And I said that was an interesting case to look at. Supreme Court ruled 5-4 that possessing a gun near school cannot be regulated under the Interstate Commerce Clause. That sounds bad, but it's important to remember that this is always nice when the government does try and rein in the definition of its own power. It reminds me very much when the Supreme Court struck down the vaccine mandate for private businesses. You can't just let the government regulate everything under the sun. And I also said if a mysterious person walks up to the school, they would probably be arrested anyway, regardless if they had a gun or not. It's why I always say that the enforcement of the laws matters, not the actual laws themselves. That's interesting, yeah. Then we have accounts getting banned from DangerSat 8554 to regular users on the subreddit just been banned for Tyson, Ebony Raven, so they've been suspended from the site of the whole, and that the thing is Reddit can do that, but the thing is they can do that for anything. Normally they say, oh, it's threatening violence, but they usually let the left get away with it a bit more. Like, as you look at somewhere like Shit Politics says, they usually have left-wing violence and they usually get away with it, so that's important to remember as well. But I definitely think Reddit, is definitely on the way out, especially if how much they ban you for pretty much dissenting at all increasingly. And I definitely don't know if it makes it to the end of the decade at this point, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Tyranny on the waters. The UAE Israeli occupation of Yemen's Socotra Island, and that's from the Cradle.co by your state officer. And I would agree that's not too good. I definitely think that all the Yemen stuff is definitely all the countries are conspiring to take it over and just retreat, make it their uh, their playground. I would say it's like every country. It seems like they're against the Yemen government right now. I have to look up the Yemen conflict and see what the who's on Yemen's side. It's like everyone's against civil war. Such for yeah yeah, pretty much everyone's against Yemen and with the Saudi-led coalition, and yeah, so that's important to remember, except for like Iran and North Korea. But even then, just because Iran and North Korea are on the other side doesn't necessarily make you give the ability to do whatever they want, and that's what you kind of see with these nations like USA, Israel, Saudi Arabia. They all think they can do whatever they want to Yemen, and that's not true. American contractors illegally operating in Syria or fleeing to Iraq from SyriaNews.cc by your state officer. And I guess, that's good to get them out of Syria. Hopefully they can get out of Iraq as well. But, those American contractors, they always find a way to get around the walls. Argentina to pay for Chinese imports using yuan, ditching USD from TRTworld.com and everyone by your state officer. And I'd agree with that. I definitely think the USD is starting to decline. We'll see how far it declines with all these new trade deals breaking out between China and Russia and all that. But we'll see what happens. And yeah, so hopefully the US will get what's coming to it, I would say. Yeah. How Putin's propaganda works, explained by Russian re-upload from YouTube, and that's from everyone by your state officer. And your state officer commented, their strategy isn't to prove that they're telling the truth, just that the other side might be lying. And I then linked and tagged me, and I said, we live in a time where narratives are much more important than context. This is true throughout the political spectrum. The idea is that if you can control the narrative, you can control the people, and Putin very much shows that. I also would say we can see that a lot here in the West too, with how the narrative is controlled by the mainstream media, but also increasingly by the alt media. So that's important as well. If yeah, so that's important to remember. At some point in time, the right of the state to see the unborn child born does take precedence over the woman's right to her body, from Patan 13 by the Washington Post. And yeah, the thing is the thing is that some people will say they're libertarian from a pro-life perspective. Some people say they're libertarian from a pro-choice perspective. I think both perspectives are valid. So I'm personally more pro-choice, but think whatever you want. I personally don't think abortion's an easy issue to solve. I don't think it ever really will be for the foreseeable future. Then we have What Causes Transgender by Born Again Special. And, he's like, 4,000 increase in the last couple of years in transgender. I said, I would say there are a fair number of trans people who suffer from legitimate gender dysphoria, but I agree there's increasingly on social contagion. It seems like a lot of people are adopting it to be trending at social media points, so we'll see how, if that continues as the years go on and it just kind of fades out like a fad. We have a novel the CIA spent a fortune to suppress from publicbooks.org. That's never won by her and yeah, I wonder what novel that is. Let's see. It is it was about the Guatemalan Mr. President. It was about the Guatemalan coup, I think. Like with the CIA plan, that's the thing. The CIA doesn't want you to know it's involved in any coups like Guatemala and Iran in the 50s, even Ukraine back in the 2010s. They don't want any CIA involvement, so that's important to remember, how much the US does regime change. Debt ceiling. Next we have debt ceiling. Talk stuck on classic problem. Republicans demand spending cuts and Democrats resist from WFA.com by her And I personally think that's just kind of theater right now. I think they'll get a deal done eventually. And yeah, so it doesn't. Even if they don't, it doesn't really matter. We'll continue on regardless. It's just so we'll see how that plays out. the war on tamales. Arizona was set to legalize potentially hazardous homemade foods, but then Governor Katie Hobbs vetoed the bill from Reason.com by her umph. And I definitely think you should be able to eat whatever you want. And I don't think people should be able to sell whatever they want. So that's my thoughts on that issue. And as long as they don't, and yeah, so I definitely think that's important to remember when it comes to selling food that might be deemed potentially hazardous. And the government has the way of stretching out definitions like potentially hazardous to be as far-reaching as possible, and that's important to remember. So I think we're going to wrap it up there, and let me, just check, see if there's anything else. I don't know, and I think I'll say bye there. Yeah, bye.